Someone found a young woman dead on the floor of her own apartment. As soon as the police began their investigation, they found a number of very scary things. The people who lived in this building had been worried about something weird for a long time, it turned out. During the investigation, the agents kept finding more and more scary information until they came to an unexpected conclusion. But that was only the beginning. Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let us look at Stephanie Bennett's most troubling case. Stephanie Bennett was born on August 30, 1979, in a small town in the United States called Rocky Mount, Virginia. Stephanie's parents broke up when she was young, and she moved in with her mother. But their father lived close to where they did, so the young woman saw him almost every day. Later, her father got a second wife, and Diana became Stephanie's stepsister. After school, Stephanie went to Roanoke College, which was 350 kilometers from her home. In her last year of high school, she started dating a guy called Walter. After college, the two people went to different places, but they stayed together. Stephanie, her stepsister Diana, and their friend Emily all moved to the North Carolina city of Raleigh. They got an apartment in the Bridgeport complex, which is on the edge of the city in a quiet, peaceful area. While their boyfriend went to engineering school in Greenville, South Carolina, the young woman got a job at IBM. Stephanie lived in Raleigh for about a year. She, her sister, and her best friend all wanted to move to different places at that time. The young woman was only 23 years old at the time. She and her boyfriend planned to move to Greenville so they could be together, and they had already started looking for a place to rent. In May, Stephanie and Walter went to Greenville, where they looked at a few apartments and chose one that would be good to rent. When she went back to Raleigh, she did not see any of her friends or her sister. Emily moved to a new city, and Diana went to a funeral for a few days. On May 20, after getting home from work, Stephanie made a call to Walter. Her boyfriend was going to fax her a rental contract so she could sign it. They decided that he would send it the next day when she could use the computer at work. Walter tried to call her the next day, but neither her work nor home phone rang. Then he called her sister Diana, and Diana told Stephanie's co-workers what had happened. It turned out that Stephanie did not go to work that day, which was very unusual. Stephanie was known for her responsible nature. If she had been feeling unwell, she would have promptly informed her boss. Similarly, if she had been sick and resting at home, she would have answered the phone when it rang. Diana asked her friend to go to their apartment and make sure everything was fine. No one opened the door when they knocked. Then Diana asked the manager of the apartment to open the door with an extra key. When the man went into his room, he saw a frightening sight. Stephanie was on the floor of the room, dead, with bruises on her neck and no clothes on. The boss immediately called the police. Detectives found Stephanie's papers and a picture on the laundry basket cover under the window in Emily's bedroom. This showed that Stephanie was the person who had died. Investigators saw leaves and thought the killer might have come in through a window. They also found Emily's home phone in her closet, with the line cut. It looks like the bad guy was hiding there, and he took Stephanie's phone so she could not use it. The police found out that some things were stolen from Diana's apartment after talking to her. The thief took Stephanie's wallet, which had $8 in it, her room, which had 2 tape recorders, and her laundry basket. It looked like he put the stolen things in the basket. Experts found sperm on the body of the victim and took a DNA sample, but it was not in the FBI database. They also found that strangulation was the cause of death. The thing the killer used to kill the victim was not in the flat, so the killer took it with him. In the meantime, The cops talked to everyone who lived in the complex because they thought someone might have seen the killer. During these talks, the police learned that strange things had been going on for a while in the apartment complex. People often saw someone looking in at them through their apartment windows. They told the building manager, but the building manager could not find the person. Strangely, this person was seen at least once at Stephanie's window. Also, a few months ago, an unknown man attacked a young woman who was running near the complex and the lake. Stephanie was afraid to be alone in this apartment, so she wanted to move to Greenwell as soon as possible. When the police looked around the building, they saw something strange in the trees. They found a lot of women's clothing, most of which belonged to Stephanie. The police thought that the killer took them out of the apartment and threw them in the bushes for some reason. But this story did not last long. It turned out that the girl who lived in the apartment next door would often sneak into Stephanie's room and steal her underwear, then throw it into the trees. When the police talked to all the people who lived there, he told them this, but he denied having anything to do with the murder. Samples of his DNA and the killer's sperm did not match. He was no longer accused of the crime because of this. The police thought that the man who kept looking into the windows of the woman who lived in the complex was the most likely killer. After talking to everyone who had ever seen this person, the spies got a rough idea of who this person was. The news talked about it, but nothing came of it. As they always do, police looked into the boyfriend of the victim. He voluntarily gave his DNA, but it did not match the killer. Also, Walter was hundreds of kilometers away from her home at the time of the murder, so he could not have been there. After that, the police went to the apartment complex and asked all of the guys to give their DNA on their own. This also did not work. The experts looked at all 283 samples and did not find a single match. There were no good clues at this point. Detectives set up a watch on the apartment building so they could find out who was watching the people who lived there. They did not expect to do so well so quickly. On June 3, police saw a man walk up to a few windows on the ground floor and look into the flats. He stopped and looked in one window. The police caught this person as soon as he started to take care of himself. This creep turned out to be Christopher Lee Campen. He had been caught watching before, and 3 years ago, he was found guilty of following a woman. The cops thought they had finally caught the murderer, but they were wrong. The victim's DNA did not match Christopher's. He was charged, but they stopped thinking he might have killed someone. Since then, the police have kept looking into the case, but they have not found any good leads. A year later, the lead agent heard that a lab in Florida could use a person's DNA to figure out what race they were. But he was not sure about this technology, and he did not want to miss out on such a good chance. As a test, he sent the DNA of 4 different race pairs to the lab. The experts did their jobs exactly, and the agent sent them the DNA of the person who killed Stephanie. The DNA was from a white person, but that did not help the police very much. In August 2003, the father of the victim offered a reward of $100,000 for any information that would help find the killer. Her mother wrote a note that was printed in local media. In it, she asked people to tell the cops anything that could help them find the person who did it. We got some new ideas from all of this, but none of them went anywhere. In April 2004, after talking to several witnesses, police decided to talk to all of the complex's residents again. They thought that the man who was caught for voyeurism might not have been the only one who walked around the complex of buildings and looked into people's windows. People who had seen the voyeur wanted to talk to the cops again because they knew who the first man was and had pictures of him. Sad to say, none of them had ever seen his face. Most of the time, this man came at night, and he almost always wore a hat. But some people said they saw him without the hood, and all they could see was that he had long hair. The Texas police talked to a lot of people until they found one who had seen this person right in front of Stephanie's window right before she was killed. He had already told the police what happened, but this time he remembered something else. A few days after the crime, the witness said he saw this person during the day. This man was walking his dog near the woods behind the apartment building. Because he was wearing a jacket, a person saw him. He watched him for a while, until he and his Labrador dog went behind some trees. Either the witness did not remember this, or did not think it had anything to do with the murders. So this was not something the police found out during the first interview. Detectives did not learn this until 2 years after Stephanie had died. Now they knew they needed to find a man with a Labrador. It looks like this guy lived nearby since he was walking his dog in the area. And here's where the agents noticed something interesting. Behind the woods area where the witness saw the man, there was another housing complex. Since the dog's owner was walking in that way, it is likely that he lived close by. So, the police chose to look into it more and asked the people who worked at a nearby business. They asked if someone who worked at the place lived with a man and a Labrador. The staff gave them information right away, telling them that a 35-year-old man called Drew Planton fit the description, and giving them some interesting information about him. Everyone who worked in the building thought he was a bit strange. He did not talk to many people, never looked anyone in the eye, and was not very nice in general. He was very skinny and always wore clothes that were too big for him because his hair was long. Many people thought that he was trying to blend in as much as possible. It did not work at all for him, though. Since the police wanted to learn more about this person, they chose to talk to an older person who was known to know a lot about what was going on in the building. At this point, things took a strange turn that no one saw coming. When she heard that the police were looking into the murder of Stephanie Bennett, the woman asked if they had made any arrests so far. She also said that most people knew that the person with the big dog was the main suspect. To say the least, the officers were shocked. They spent 2 years looking for this person. At first, people who lived in his complex suspected this man, but none of them thought it was important to tell the cops. Drew had left that house and was now living on the other side of town. The officers wanted to talk to him, so they went to his apartment and knocked on the door. No one answered. They went back there more than once, at different times of day, but no one answered. Either the man never got home, or he did not mean to open the door. While they were looking for Drew, the cops went to his old home and talked to his old friends. They were able to find a few people who saw scary things and told them about them. A woman who lived on the floor above had seen Drew with a young boy a few days after Stephanie's death. As they walked down the street, they talked to each other. A witness said that Drew told the boy to stop calling the police and not say anything to them. Investigators knew right away that the young man in question was the same teenager who had taken underwear from the victim's flat. Several women said that Drew scared them in general because they had seen him when they were out running or walking alone. The man would either keep a close eye on them or even try to catch them. Detectives who could not get in touch with Drew went to where he worked. The officers were able to catch him at work because he was a chemist at a lab that made fertilizer. He said right away that he had not heard about Stephanie Bennett's death, which was strange since he lived only a kilometre away from her apartment complex at the time. The man told the police that he was very busy and did not want to talk to them right now. Drew told the officers that he would answer all of their questions if they came to his house at a certain time. When the police came to talk to him in his room, he finally let them in. During the conversation, he said that he had never walked his dog near where Stephanie lived. But a lot of people said they had seen him there many times, so the police knew right away that he was lying. The man also said he did not wear glasses, even though his driver's license said he had to wear them while driving, and several witnesses said the man who was looking into other people's windows wore glasses. As expected, Drew would not give a DNA sample on his own. So, they decided to keep an eye on him and see if they could find another way to get a sample. But this was hard to do because the man did not leave behind anything that could be sent to the lab. During his lunch breaks, he would leave work, sit in his car, and just stare. The man stopped eating for a while, so the cops could not find anything with his DNA on it. When officers saw Drew throw an empty water bottle into a trash can, they took it and took it to the lab, but experts could not get a DNA sample from it. One story says that Drew took someone else's model and threw it out on purpose because he knew he was being watched. After that, the police tried to take his trash, but they could not do it either. A few days went by before they saw Drew take it out. Even the man's neighbours could not remember seeing him with the trash bag. The cops then went to Drew's boss and asked for help. The woman agreed to help them get anything that might have Drew's DNA from his workplace. She watched him for a few days, but could not figure out what was going on. Drew did not eat much at work, and he never threw anything away. Also, even though he had long hair, she could not find a single hair on his desk. Investigators were already sure that Drew was trying to hide everything on purpose so they could not get his DNA. One day, his boss saw him put a rubber band in his hair and then bend down to pick up all the hairs that fell out. After that, the woman decided to ask him to lunch at a cafe so they could talk about work, but the man was still very careful. He mostly ate with his hands, put the used napkins in his pocket, and even took the straw and cup from his drink. For dinner, they had banana pudding. Drew finally used a fork, but then he wiped it with a wet piece of paper for 15 minutes, making it impossible to get a DNA sample from the fork. Even though this was true, the agents took the fork and sent it to the lab. The experts were able to find tiny pieces of DNA that partly matched the DNA of the person who killed Stephanie, but the results were too unclear because there was not enough biological material to make a full comparison. In the end, the police got a warrant to search Drew's workplace. They were hoping to find something that had his DNA on it. Investigators were afraid that the man would run away if he knew they were looking for him, so they did the search at night. They found gloves on the subject that he needed to wear when working with chemicals. The officers knew that his DNA might be in there, so they took them and put another pair in their place. Still, they thought Drew might try to run away, so they kept an eye on him for a few days until the lab could confirm that the gloves really did have his DNA on them. On October 18, 2005, police officers quietly waited outside the man's workplace until he came out. Investigators were afraid that he would fight them or take one of his co-workers hostage if they tried to arrest him in the building. They had good reason to be worried. As soon as the man left the building, he was caught. He was found with a loaded gun, and it looked like he knew the cops were just a few steps away and did not plan to give up easily. Drew did not say a word, would not eat or drink, and barely moved during the 6 hours of questions. In the end, the cops had to put him in a wheelchair so they could move him. After getting a warrant to search his apartment, the cops found a laundry basket from Stephanie's house. There were also 9 guns, 2 rifles, 40 knives, a sword, and a knife among his things. The officers also found handcuffs and a set of tools to pick locks. They found a notebook with the names of a lot of women in it, so they went to find them right away to make sure they were safe. When the cops were looking into the case, one of the women was a neighbour who had told them about Drew. She said that he had been looking at her on the street, which made her feel uncomfortable. The police checked Drew's house and found a copy of her high school graduation tape, as well as her underwear and tampons. Her worst fears came true. Drew had broken into her apartment, taken the tape, made a copy, and then returned the original. Even after he moved into his apartment, he kept these things. They also found a check with the name of a woman who had died in 1999. Investigators found out that Drew lived in her city at the time, and that the woman was shot with a pretty rare type of gun. During the search, the man's collection contained the same kind of gun. Because of this, Drew became a suspect in this case, but he had to go to trial for killing Stephanie first. A month after he was jailed, the government said they would try to kill him. The trial was supposed to start the following year, but Drew had to stay in jail by himself until then. But no trial ever happened. On January 1, 2006, the guy was found dead in the same cell. He was very careful, but he still killed himself. Investigators were sure that Drew had killed Stephanie Bennett, but after searching his house, they had to wonder, how many other victims could this person have had? At the very least, there was a good chance that he killed the woman in 1999, but the cops were pretty sure that Drew had done other bad things. After carefully reading his history, the police found out a lot of interesting things about him. Drew had 3 brothers when he was growing up, so his family was always complete. Their father always made fun of them and beat them, so their mother took them and ran away to a different state. Drew became a very quiet kid as a result, and this got worse over time. Still, he went to a good school and now works as a chemist, which is a good job. His friends said he was very smart, but that he did not know how to talk to people. He did not have any friends and did not talk to anyone at work. He also avoided the team as much as possible. Drew's brother had even gotten into trouble with the cops. He used a secret camera to watch women, and he got a suspended sentence. In 2008, Drew's mom filed a lawsuit against the state government, saying that the government was to blame for her son's death. But the judge said that the jail staff had done everything they needed to do, and that they could not stop the man. Stephanie Bennett's father tried to sue the management of the apartment complex because they did not pay enough attention to the safety of the people living there when they heard about a spy named Tom. He thought that there was not enough lighting around the building at night, so anyone could walk around there without being seen. He also found out that the window in his daughter's room was broken, but the management of the complex did not fix it right away, even though it was their job to do so. But in the end, the man himself turned down the charges and did not say anything about his decision. So, this case that was hard to figure out was finally solved. People still wonder how many more people Drew could have killed. From what we know, the man probably did bad things over and over again, but after he died, it was almost impossible to find out the truth. Tell us in the comments what you think. If you liked this video, be sure to click the like button. Thanks for watching.